New Year's Day of 2023 was the last time mother of three Anna Walshe was ever seen alive. Now, nearly 3 years later, her body's still missing. Her husband, Brian Walshe, is on trial for her murder. The highly anticipated trial kicked off this week. And what, after all this time, does Brian say happened that fateful night? Well, she died in bed of a sudden, unexplained death. And what was Brian's first impulse in that tragic moment? Perform CPR, call 911, perhaps go get the neighbors for help? Nope. He chose to dispose of her body before anyone discovered it. All this tonight on Courtroom Confidential. Good evening and welcome everybody to Wednesday Night Live from Courtroom Confidential, the fastest growing true crime news channel on YouTube. Thank you, everyone, so much for being here. I'm so glad to finally be back home in the friendly confines of our little basement studio here. And it's so good to see so many of you showing up again this evening. JC Broadway and Debbie Blair and Ohio Palm Mom, Joanna Moore, Farm Girl. Thank you guys so much for being here. I appreciate it. To everybody who's returning, you came on a good night. We've got a Brian Walshe extravaganza for you this evening and just the person to bring it to you. And everybody who's new, welcome. I think you're really going to enjoy this evening, but let me introduce myself. My name is Joshua Ritter. I'm a former prosecutor with the LA District Attorney's Office. I was there for about 10 years before I left to go into private practice as a criminal defense attorney. And this is Courtroom Confidential, where we take my background and hopefully try to present to you an even display of both sides of the courtroom. We hope that we do that. And this is a show that we call Wednesday Night Live. It is your midweek check-in on all things true crime. And the biggest thing in true crime this week has been the Brian Walshe case, which, like I said, is finally kicking off after close to 3 years since the disappearance of Anna Walshe. So for this evening, we have a very special guest, and that is Scott from Recovery Addict. Scott is one of my favorite YouTubers for watching live trials because he has an experience I think that no one else has on YouTube as far as his ability to present to you what's happening in the courtroom, along with people's comments, along with taking phone calls. And then if you've ever had the experience of doing courtroom hopping with him, it's something you should check out for sure. And we're going to be talking about Brian Walshe, the first 3 days of that trial and what we have seen so far and what to expect. And what I would really love is for you guys to ask as many questions as you possibly can, because Scott's been watching every minute of this trial. I've been watching as much of it as I can. I've got the legal background. He's got the in-courtroom experience. And we would love to hear what are the things that you guys are worrying about. So please leave us your questions. If you could, what do we like? The QQQ or the question marks? The question marks. If you could put the question marks in front of your questions, that'll help us flag it so that we can ask them for you. As always, please stay to the very, very end for some special announcements. But I do have one very special announcement to begin with. Kathy Mama Bear says, happy birthday to our fabulous one and only Alicia K. Mayo. Happy birthday, AKM from Humboldt, Tennessee. I hope you're there. I hope you're in the chat. I don't know if I've seen your name just yet, but if you are, I hope you're having a wonderful and happy birthday. All right. It's Wednesday. It's hump day. You've made it halfway through the week. Take a deep breath, deep cleansing breath. Hit that like button if you haven't already. Subscribe if you haven't already. And please share this with anybody that you think might enjoy it. But before any of that, let me first of all thank Fala Dammit for the gift of 5 Courtroom Confidential memberships. That's Fala Dammit, everyone. And to Gray Hair Grace for becoming a brand new YouTube member. Welcome, Gray Hair Grace. I think you're going to enjoy it. All right. Shut up, Ritter. It's time to bring on your guest. Here he is. Hello, my friend. How are you?
Josh, it is great to be here. I love to be here with you because it reminds me of the days I worked in the news media where everything was just a well-oiled machine. It was high stress, but everyone knew their role. And it's like, ready, 3, 2, 1, go, action. That's what it's like behind the scenes, and I love it. So thank you very much.
I will take that as a compliment. We appreciate that. We're trying, man. We're trying. It's sometimes it's thrown together with scotch tape and string, but we're getting it. We're getting it there. But we take a lot of inspiration from you. So thank you so much for those kind words. I appreciate it. How you doing?
I'm doing just great. Trying to get over the family sickness over the Thanksgiving. It wasn't food poisoning. I promise. I cooked the bird appropriately, but
Right.
little illness in the family. Everyone's recovering here. We'll be back to full strength before Christmas, so it's going to be great.
Did it hit you all before Thanksgiving or right after?
Oh, it was before. Nobody had an appetite. I slaved away in the kitchen. I'm like, this is my year, Mrs. RA. Sit back. I'm going to do everything. And everyone's like, no, I'm not hungry. I'm just.
That's awful.
It was good fun. We got a lot of good time with the family, though. So it was great.
I'm sure that you took it upon yourself to try to get through as much of that food and not let it go to waste as possible.
Somebody had to do it.
Somebody had to do it. I'm glad to hear that.
That's good.
All right. Well, hopefully everybody's on the mend and feeling better in the Scott recovery addict household. But this week, I have no great segue for this, but this week this is one of the cases that I have been watching for a long time. There's every once in a while, there's a case that when the news breaks on it, it fascinates me, and we follow it, and even though it may drag on and it gets some attention here or there, we really keep our eyes on it. And this is one of those ones. We actually did a deep dive on this case way back when, a couple years ago. We redid that, kind of updated it more recently. But I'm always drawn to cases that from a former prosecutor's perspective, I feel like that's going to be a doozy to present to a jury. That's going to have some difficulties. That's going to be one that they're going to, there might be some struggle with. Well, this initially looked like that. I don't know if it's exactly turning into that, but I do want to, without coloring your opinion, I want to get kind of your initial impressions. Now that things have started, what do you think? If you're Brian Walsh, do you think things are going well for you so far, or is it 3 days in and already trouble?
Well, day one, he was holding rosary beads, and if that's an indicator, he's looking for help anywhere he can get it.
To the higher power to help him out. Yeah.
Yes, this is an interesting case. It's a circumstantial case because it's a no body situation. There was no body recovered, and so that puts an extra burden on the state to sort of prove what they think happened. But in this particular case, as it's unfolding, especially with day two, Brian helped them out a lot. He filled in a lot of the gaps, and he did it through Google searches. So that's probably why the defense fought so hard to keep them out. But they're in, and we've heard just tons of them. It's been remarkable. It's been interesting. First of all, it's great to be back in Norfolk County. The same place that Karen Reed's trial was held. It looks so familiar. The fans, the courtroom, the bailiffs. It's all very familiar. But then it's also brand new, with a new judge, a very different judge.
Mm-hmm.
And
what do you think of this judge? This is Judge Diane Frenier.
I love her. Well, as a friend, she is refreshing in a way that she comes across. There's sometimes, I said this today on my live stream, there's a trial where there's multiple battles being argued, right? There's the prosecution versus the defense, right? And sometimes there's also that second battle with the judge versus the prosecution, of the judge versus that's not there. Yeah. She is just even. She's very well informed about the case. Obviously, there's been a lot leading up to where they are so far. And she's just very fair and very clear. And I guess it's sort of like all three parties have to cooperate for it to be as smooth as it is, but they're just working well together as a justice machine, both prosecution, defense, and the judge. And so it's refreshing. My community has absolutely loved it. And so, this is we like watching court like this, where the focus is the defendant, and is the case proven? Are the elements of the crime proven? Instead of like, why is there a personal spat between these two people?
You make such an excellent point. If a judge is doing a very good job, you should almost not know the judge is there, right? They shouldn't be this active character in the drama that's playing out. They should be there. A calm kind of judicial temperament, calling balls and strikes, allowing things to play out, making sure, keeping an eye on the courtroom and making sure nobody's bickering with each other. But they shouldn't become this other character. And when you start to see these judges doing that, that's usually a breakdown in their role. And so I think that's what you're describing here.
Yeah, it's great. It's refreshing. I like the way she handles the jury. I like the way she's respectful in the courtroom, and she's great, timely. She's pretty much kept a schedule. It's short hours. They only do about 5 hours of actual like trial time each day. But she follows the schedule that gives the jury something they can work with. And it's a routine that they can follow. It's just really, really refreshing to see that and watch it progress.
I agree. All right, let's get into it. Monday. So there's been a lot of anticipation for this trial. And then the first day of jury selection, he takes this plea and he says, I'm going to plead to disposing of her body, or conveying her body is the way that it's described in Massachusetts. And I'm going to plead guilty to lying to police. And that shocked a lot of people. A lot of people thought, is this some sort of clever thing that the defense is doing? Are we missing something here? What's the strategy behind all of this? End of the day, I think what it really came down to were those Google searches. And we're going to get into the Google searches, but I want to get into this part about in opening first. But it really left then this wide open question of, okay, from those pleas, we're going to imagine he said somehow he happened upon her body and she died. Either it was by his hands, through something short of murder, somebody else's hands, her own hands, accidental, whatever it is. And we're all kind of trying to guess what would be the best theory. And they come out of the gate, all this years of buildup and anticipation out of the gate, and they call it, this is Tipton in his opening, a sudden and unexplained death. And that, quote, he thought to himself, what would happen to their 3 boys now that Anna is no longer here? What will happen if they think he did something bad to Anna? What will those boys do? So that was it. She's just dead. No explanation, no accident, no nothing. And he decides, what am I going to do? I'm going to dispose of her body. What was your reaction to that? And then tell me if you have any insights as to how that's been playing with jurors.
Well, my reaction, I was surprised as you were, but I looked at the wider situation. What was Brian thinking? Like, let's get in his head when if that's what happened, and we're trying to walk through and make sense of this. He was facing sentencing in a federal trial, his art fraud trial from 2018, where he sold the fake Andy Warhol painting. That sentence would carry most likely a prison term and some financial restitution. That was a huge burden on the family at the time. That was like looming over them, both the financial strain and the impending possibility of him being out of the picture for at least a year, maybe multiple years, while he serves a sentence. So with that in mind, the story kind of makes sense about, oh no, if my wife has just passed away, what happens to the kids? But that's where it falls apart, and where reasonable people would say, well, here's what we do. We call family, we call for help, we call 911. And instead he literally says we're going to hear, he's got to take the stand to hear this, but his defense attorney said when he found her dead early that New Year's morning, he pushes her out of bed, first of all, shoves her out of bed. And then before the sun comes up on New Year's Day, he's Googling how to dispose of a body. And that, for me, I think has lost the jury, because the jury is basically the reasonable mind, right? The average person that wants to look at this and say, that makes sense. I can see why you did that, or there's reasonable doubt here. And I think the jury is, jaw down, mouth open, and shaking their head at some of these things like, what? There's a logical leap that is just very difficult to make, that the defense is trying very hard to say it made sense. He was just confused about her being dead, suddenly dead, and what to do. And so he lied to police.
Here's I've thought long and hard about this, because it would take very little effort, I feel like, to come up with a far better explanation as to how she ended up dead that would give far more credibility and credence to why he might panic. She fell down the stairs. They're never going to believe it was an accident. They're going to say, I pushed her down the stairs. She took her own life. He couldn't, whatever it is. I could see any one of those things as giving a person, even as still as hard it is to believe, more of a reason to panic. But simply finding your wife dead for no reason in bed does not elicit the kind of panic that he's talking about. What it does elicit is, like you said, calling 911, calling for paramedics, performing CPR, any number of things, but not immediately going, okay, how am I going to dispose of her body? Now, that all being said, what we might be dealing with here, and I'm just trying to offer explanations, is not so much a lack of creativity on the part of the defense, but a defense that's hamstrung by their own client. In other words, if they're talking to Brian and they're going, Brian, we're going to put you on the stand and you're going to have to explain this. Tell us what happened. And Brian says, I found her dead in bed. Then that's kind of what they're stuck with, right? If that's his story, that's his story. I mean, there's, you're getting into really gray areas where you start saying, hey, Brian, I've got a better idea. What if we say you got into a fight and she came after you with an axe and then you defended yourself, and that would explain some more of this? Maybe they're just going with what they were handed to by their own client.
Yeah, we know a couple things. We know Brian likes to talk. He tells stories.
Yeah.
He's probably told a story to the defense, and he might be sticking to that story and then, tied their hands as far as how they approach this. But the worst part is he's told them a story that is going to require him to take the stand. Okay, he has to take the stand. And we
100%.
We spent the first day plus listening to him lie to police. That was just recording after recording of lie after lie after lie. And the jury knew it when they heard it, because the defense had told him he lied to police. He knew Anna was dead before the police interview. And the jury heard that. They write that down in their notes. And then everything that follows is the jury analyzing Brian Walshe and his behavior and how easily he lies, how quickly he makes up stories. And it just, when he takes a stand, how's the jury supposed to look at him and say, okay, now he's telling the truth? Because why? Because he needs to? Well, he needed to hide a body. We heard about that. Right. There are things he can do when he needs to do things. And I don't think that he's going to be able to cross that bridge of trust with the jury when it comes time. That's very important for him to explain what actually happened there.
Yeah. All right. Let me get into some of the questions that we have here. But first of all, let me thank a homicide detective's daughter. Thank you so much for gifting a membership. Very, very kind of you and generous. Appreciate that. All right. And Golden Girl 9 has been a member for 9 months, everybody. Golf clap. No reply. Oh, sorry, I missed that last one. No replay crew for me tonight. I made it. Love you both. Fantastic. Good to hear that. And Alicia K. Mayo. Joshua and everyone, thank you very much for the happy birthday wish as well. Happy birthday again. So glad that you are here tonight. Cody in Tennessee, thank you for the gift of a membership. Appreciate that so much. All right. Did I miss anybody? If I did, I'm sorry. I'll get to you as soon as I can. Let me get to some of these questions, though. Well, this one's going to come. Well, let me see. Here's a good one. Flora by the Sea. This is if you're writing up your cross-examination. And believe me, by the way, the prosecution was probably as shocked as anybody by that opening statement. They're not told ahead of time, right? So as they're saying that, they're trying to think of all these ways they're going to cross-examine him. And this is one that I've seen a lot of people talk about, the ridiculousness of her being in the bed, but not so much about the, you can't really nudge a body off a bed. What are your thoughts about that? I think that's a great question.
Well, I don't know why they told that part, honestly. Why would you push the body off the bed? It seemed like a useless detail, or a detail that wasn't necessary for the jury to know about. Clearly, the body has to be off the bed. We can anticipate, because there was no blood found on the bed, that it was dismembered or killed somewhere else.
Right.
Yeah. So it seemed like a useless detail that tried to build up the story, but it literally that line alone requires Brian to take the stand to testify to, because no one else could know that.
Yeah.
There's no other way to prove that.
The only thing I thought about is, and we're going to get into it now, because really this whole case, it's the Google searches. It really is. I mean, there's a lot of stuff to support it, but this case turned on those Google searches. I'm wondering, because so much of the Google searches talk about blood, if they had to explain, okay, Brian, well, if she didn't die because you stabbed her or shot her or pushed her down the stairs or wherever else, where'd all the blood come from? Maybe they thought, well, if he pushed her off the bed, that would have caused some bleeding. Maybe they're going to explain the blood by just saying, well, listen, you chop somebody up, there's going to be a lot of blood. I don't know, but you're right. It does seem like this weirdly, bizarrely specific piece of information that doesn't really take us anywhere.
Yeah. And we have to find out more information still I mean, we've seen pictures today. We saw pictures of blood, but we need more information about that to see whose blood is where. I can guess it's her blood, and it's pretty much everywhere. But we're still waiting for that confirmation from the lab.
Yeah.
But
one more question here, and this came up. We're kind of skipping ahead, but I do want to address it because a lot of people have been asking about it, is the idea of his guilty pleas. So there's a difference between the underlying criminal conduct and the actual plea that he took to these crimes. The underlying criminal conduct of lying to police is already out there. They've already testified to it. It's already coming in. The underlying conduct of disposing of her body, they've already admitted it, right? I mean, it's already coming out. But will the jury actually find out that he pled to charges related to those before this trial began? And that was discussed a little bit today by the judge, correct?
Right at the end of the day, the judge basically says, look, the jury, we have to decide this. Will the jury find out, first of all? And if they do, how is that going to be handled? You obviously don't want to prejudice the jury by saying, oh, by the way, he's also said he's guilty of this crime that's connected to this incident. So she has to walk very carefully here. She's waiting for a little bit of feedback from the defense team on the motion about how to proceed. And I think also a consciousness of guilt instruction to the jury that we're still waiting for an answer. Possibly tomorrow morning we'll get answers on those from the judge as we move forward.
Let's get to day 2, because day 2 is where the rubber really started to hit the road. And this was Tuesday, yesterday. This is when they started to go through the Google searches. And when we first, early on in the reporting of this case, we knew about some of the Google searches. What we didn't know, or at least I had not heard, is how many Google searches he made. I mean, I'm looking
all
over.
Of them. He made
all the Google searches. Yes. There are what?
Almost 50.
50. I was going to say like 4 dozen or so. Yeah.
That have to do with murder in some way or cleaning up the body. And they start before 5 o'clock in the morning, how to dispose of a body. Before 7 o'clock in the morning, he's asking how long someone has to be dead before you can inherit money. And it just gets worse.
Yes.
We've had trials where we get like somebody's Google search and they're like, they asked this question, and that question alone is just so incriminating of Google search.
Yes.
And Brian didn't stop. It was just one after another. And it was like he was following a step-by-step instruction of how to dispose of a body. And then when he got to the next problem, it's like, oh, well, there's a joint or a bone here. How do I deal with that? Best way to dismember.
It was almost like he went into some sort of thought paralysis. Like he couldn't, he didn't know how to do anything without Google searching at first. You know what I'm saying? It was like even the simplest things he's starting to Google search. It was incredible.
This might make sense. Somebody might be able to analyze his brain and figure this out. But imagine doing this to someone you've been married to and had 3 children with, you've built a life with. There had to be some sort of disconnect in his head where he turned part of himself off to do this. It's not on human nature.
Very well. He was operating on some sort of zombie, autopilot mode and just didn't know what to do without Google searching it. I want to show something, and I don't want to steal your joke. You said ahead of time, but I'm going to cue you up. You said you've done more Google searching when you.
I Googled more.
Or you've done less Google
searching than Brian did about how to hide a body.
I swear.
And I do a lot of research on cars.
Right. Yeah. Let's get into some of the. I've highlighted a few of these that I thought were interesting. There's dozens of them. We could talk about them all that night. But actually, they pointed out some that took place before they believe the murder took place. And this was interesting to me because he is searching on December 26th, 8 p.m., 8:50 p.m., best state to divorce for a man. And he does quite a bit of searches about cheating wives. There's actually a Pornhub search relating to that, but he's searching about divorce. And I thought the prosecution's bringing this in for motive. But it's also interesting from the defense perspective, if you follow where I mean. In other words, he's thinking about divorce in these moments, not exactly murder, right? Here's Mr. Google, and he's not saying best way to kill wife, top 10 ways to murder your wife, but it's how to divorce, right?
Defense, when this was raised, they went a different direction with it. Instead, they said, could this have been Brian and Anna looking into like an investment in an area, and they just want to learn about an area for, buying property and renting it out? Could they have been researching divorce rates for that reason? I'm like, that was low hanging fruit that you missed right there.
Do you think the defense is doing well? I mean, listen, they've got the facts that they've got, but do you think that they're doing well with the facts that they have?
They are doing well at distracting the jury from the terrible facts that have been laid out. When you go through 50 Google searches with how to dispose a body, best tool for dismembering, hacksaw, best tool, can you identify a body with broken teeth? These terrible, things that paint a very vivid picture in the jury's mind. He manages to cross-examine that witness for hours and not mention or barely touch on the fact that there was some searches about bodies or murder. He instead looks at something else, look over here, look at the Pornhub stuff, and the shocking.
By the way, can be an effective defense strategy, right? You want people confused. The last thing you want them doing is being, fully aware of the story. A confused jury is usually a hung jury, right? But it does seem like there's a lot of missed opportunities. Let's get to some more of these. So now, January 1st. Last time she's seen alive is that evening, going from the 31st to the 1st. So she may have died within hours of the last person having seen her, right? Because I believe they testified that house guest for that party left sometime after midnight. Makes sense. By 4:52, he starts searching for best ways to dispose of a body. But 6:24, he's already on to how long for someone to be missing to inheritance, which to me was breathtaking because, to your point earlier, here's the woman you loved, had 3 children with, and already you're thinking about money within hours of her perhaps being discovered dead in her bed.
It definitely could speak to motive. I mean, we've got Brian paints a picture with the police as something that's completely different from what their bank statements say, right? Mm-hmm. When he's talking to police, he's saying Gucci and Prada, and he mentioned, I think we counted 44 different brand names he mentioned so far in the trial: Tiffany, Gucci, Prada, Apple, Mazda, Louis Vuitton.
I love that you kept track of this.
Verizon, Porsche, T-Mobile, Uber, Lyft, Home Depot, Lowe's, McDonald's, Fidelity, JetBlue.
You gotta fund your trial somehow, right?
None of them are sponsors, unfortunately. but he's throwing these names around about, she wears this and everything's nice, and she's got this great high-paying job and everything's good. I think because he didn't want police to look at the financial. Didn't want to look a little bit deeper under there. As soon as the police started asking questions about that federal incident, that federal case coming up, that's the first time in his interview he sort of was at a loss for words and didn't know what to say. He's like, I'm not sure what I should say, because it does have that financial restitution portion, which was huge for them.
Yeah.
And so you've got motive sitting out there, and I think he was trying to hide that under all these brand names of how well we're doing, what a good job she has. She makes $300,000. She's in DC. She's jets flying here and there and everywhere. This is the best thing ever. But he does definitely have some motive there with that inheritance question.
I went through these Google searches, trying to put on my defense attorney hat and trying to imagine, or my prosecutor hat, either way, trying to figure out how many of these could you, if you've already got this defense that you disposed of her body, how many of these fall into that defense and how many of these don't. And so one of the ones that started to, there's more than this, but one of the ones I noticed first was at 9:33 a.m. He Googles, how long does DNA last? And he's redirected to a website titled, is it possible to clean DNA off a knife? DNA is very different than blood. right? In the psychology of the person searching for it, because DNA, you're starting to think about evidence, right? Is that starting, in your view, to make this look more like the cover up to a crime than the hiding of a body?
For me, it's looked at the very beginning that this was cover up. But yeah, he's asking these questions. It's almost like he is Googling and finding answers that cause more questions, right? So he's learning. It's like he never watched a true crime show, you know, and he found out after he murdered it what happens afterwards. And so he's learning as he goes and Googling as he learns.
Yeah,
and
our community would not be asking these questions.
No.
They'd already know the answer to half of these.
Yeah, but it's sort of shocking at the same time. This was, I think, all new to him, or in whatever mental state he was in at the time. It was something that he needed to read and take in before he could take action on.
And they're in rapid succession within minutes of each other many times. He's doing these flurries of searches. He's just like in a frantic state of trying to educate himself. 11:28 a.m. So still, her body is likely not even cold. And he's searching for ways to dispose of body parts after murder, not after accidental death, not after sudden unexplained death, after murder. 11:28 as well. 6 ways to dispose of a body / murder.
Why,
and this is
why
some
6?
sort of murder blog. Yeah.
Why 6 ways?
I don't
there are
know if
also
that's
some
search
top
or
10
something he was directed to, but whatever. Apparently there's this murder blog. Tell me why that exists. But, you know, he's looking at, now he's thinking about murder, not what happened to accidental death, right?
Yeah, it's like, first of all, I don't think he really thought through that any of this can be found until later on in the searches. And that's when you'll start seeing searches about how do you clear your history or get rid of your laptop, hard drives, things like that. So I think he thought this was a safe space for him to figure out what to do next. And he dumped everything into it. And only afterwards did he start putting pieces together. He's like, oh great, now I've left more evidence.
Yeah.
And what do I do with that?
Going to our thought that we had earlier about how, as a prosecutor, I'm listening to this and I'm hearing his story, and I'm always thinking about what is my cross-examination going to be of him. One of the things to me, if I were the prosecutor, I would point out is it's interesting not only what he searched for, but what he didn't search for. Okay, so you're saying, Brian, you found your wife unexpectedly dead. Where is your search for how to perform CPR? Unexplained, reasons for unexplained death. How about searches for food poisoning? How about maybe something that happened to her could have happened to your kids? How about there might be something in the air that caused your wife to unexpectedly die? Nothing as far as what would cause her to die, how to resuscitate her. Should I leave the home if my wife unexpectedly, nothing about that you might think Mr. Google would be searching for. Instead, it's all just about, doesn't care how she died. No curiosity. The most curious man on earth, and no curiosity as to why she ended up dead.
Instead, it's, my wife's missing. Is it okay for me to still use her credit card?
Right.
That's just
right.
But
shocking stuff.
He obviously failed in the Google search department when it came to this crime and trying to cover it up, which I believe that's what he was doing. But that wasn't the only area that he really sort of did the wrong thing. And the other is in the cleanup, it required equipment. It required, lack of a better word, it required hardware and supplies. And he went shopping on the murder aisle like it was a shopping spree, and he only bought the items he needed to clean up the murder. He wasn't like going and getting some flowers for the garden and
throw in a
maybe
loaf
few
of bread
other
just to throw everybody off the trail.
Gallon of milk.
No,
he's he cleans house, buckets, mops, Tyvek suit. It's just the tools, the hacksaw, the hammers, it is bizarre to hear the receipts be read off as to what he got, and say, what checker in their right mind would check this guy out and not call 911 just immediately? Because there's only one thing you need all these tools for.
Let me finish out the searches here, because I want to get to then some of the actual hard evidence that they recovered, which was a lot about today, and I want to get to some of the questions too. But here's some more of the highlights I found. 12:21 p.m., still the day that she was likely murdered. Is it better to throw away crime scene clothes or wash them? I don't know why that one. I love that, because one, he's describing it as a crime scene, and two, what is he being frugal here? He hates the wastefulness of throwing out his clothes?
I think what he was getting at is, would it look worse if the clothes were just gone, or if they had been freshly laundered?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, yeah. He's asking. I guess he's asking the opinion of the internet as to what makes him look more guilty. Yeah, perhaps that's it. Then the next day he gets into all this stuff about, the hacksaws and all that stuff, and what makes me look, no corpse, no problem, notable murder convictions without a body, all of this kind of stuff. He's now trying to think about, can he be convicted? Tuesday, January 3rd, 2 days later. This one stood out to me, because to our point, are footprints easy to wash away? And what I loved about that one is, it's like, again, it goes back to this idea of like thought paralysis. Like, he literally cannot think for himself without Google searching it, right? Something is like, are footprints easy to wash away? Like, what is it? What helpful information is he going to get from the internet about that?
It needs more explanation. And if he takes the stand, I can see on cross-examination, the prosecutor getting up and saying, explain this.
Yeah.
What footprints are you talking about? Where were the footprints? Were they muddy footprints? Were they bloody footprints? Whose footprints were they? Tell us the background.
Did you get an answer? Was the answer helpful? Like,
and were they easy to wash away?
Were they easy to wash away, Brian? Yeah. And then finally, the last one I highlighted here was January 4th. So 3 days later, 8:55 p.m. Does a cell phone track your historical location? Because now, what has happened, and what is he thinking about?
This is remarkable, because for his federal case, he was wearing an ankle monitor this entire time. Anytime he went somewhere, he had to be like, hey, I'm gonna drive, and I'm going on an errand, got to run to CVS. He's phoning in and scheduling trips away from home because he's being monitored. And now he's asking, oh, great, maybe my cell phone also can be used against me. The fact that he did this, and honestly, the one area of the crime, which if he committed, which I believe he did, that he did well, was disposing of the body. He did it successfully. Most murder suspects are people who commit murder are not very good at doing that, and they get caught when the body is found. The body was not found. And I think he was asking this question because he did go places to drop off her body parts after dismembering in different locations. I don't think it was all in one dumpster. I think he sort of spread it out a little bit.
Yeah, he did. He made several trips. I think they said that they've only been able to recover. We're going to get into the stuff they recovered, but they've only been able to recover from, like, I think one trash location. Like, they were not able to recover a lot of the items he disposed of, including her body, right? I mean, we got to imagine that her body was part of the things he disposed of, and they never were able to find that.
Part of the thing that actually helped him was the time of year that this was committed. The time of year, this is right after Christmas. Everyone's just opened a whole bunch of packages and boxes. Everybody's trash is overflowing. And we need to dump it. The dumpsters have to be emptied, or else it just piles up in the parking lot in the apartment complexes. So every dumpster that's just about, needs to be dumped, you can throw it in there knowing that it's going to be gone in a couple of hours. And all the trash goes to the incinerator.
Such an excellent point. That, yeah, he had the benefit of kind of this overpopulation, taxed, overburdened trash cycle anyways. Wow, excellent point. A couple of things here I want to point out from some people watching. Susan Schleppenbach, I think I did that pretty well.
Nailed it. First try.
Thank you. Says, did you catch that he searched for how to remove blood from a wood floor but the basement floor was concrete. Tell us about where they believe things took place, because I know the basement was a concern to investigators.
This I don't know.
Okay.
I'd like to hear the theory as to where they think this happened, and we might not hear all the facts until, I don't know, closing, when they put together their theory. But there's obviously blood at many locations. As he's working in blood, he's spread out drop cloths and scotch taped them together to try to contain the scene. We've got multiple pairs of slippers that are covered in blood. It looks like a pair was his and pairs were hers. So he's got to move around. I think he, he created more of the problem for himself in putting blood different places and then trying to backtrack and clean up after it. But I don't know if a bathtub was used or if it was a basement, the concrete floor. Obviously, that might have been the location.
It is interesting, though, because it begs the question of how much moving of her body did he do, and where was she bleeding? I mean, it's a great question for the prosecution. If he starts to say, well, I pushed her onto the floor, and she was dead, and then I decided I had to dispose of her, so I brought her down to the basement. Well, then why are you searching for how to remove blood from a wooden floor? What was that all about? Great points that again, there's a lot of prior statements that he's making in these Google searches. Last question, then we'll get to some thank yous here, but where did it go? Does Mujer Barroca says, does premeditation have to be days or hours in advance? And I'll answer this one. It doesn't even have to be hours. It can be moments. One of the examples I used to use as a prosecutor is that premeditation is just the idea that you gave it some thought and made a decision. In other words, it wasn't heat of passion. It wasn't without any kind of deliberation, but that you thought about something and made a decision. And we used to use the example of when you're driving down the highway and you come up to a traffic light and it turns yellow. You decide, am I going to go through it? Am I busy? Am I late for work? Do I have time to make it through that yellow, or do I need to stop? And will that make me late? And all the other ramifications of stopping for that stoplight. Those few moments, that's premeditation. That is enough time for you to have thought, made a decision, and lived with the consequences of that decision. And so it doesn't sound like, like we said, Mr. Google search is not searching for ways to kill her. Something happened that evening and she lost her life, but it could have been enough premeditation in those few moments, which to me, again, why in the heck isn't he telling us this was some horrific accident and we got into a fight and she came after me and I pushed her and she fell down the stairs and all that horrible stuff? Because that would explain something short of murder. But here we are. We are dealing with the facts that we have. All right. Fala, damn it. Sorry, I missed you. Annalie Finch, thank you so much. Great collab, she says. Appreciate that. Very kind of you. Fala, damn it. Gifted 5 memberships. I appreciate
you like saying that.
I do love saying that. I feel like I get away with something. Very kind of you. Pammy MC, thank you so much for buying the mods coffees, keeping the mods wide awake for this evening. All right. Let's see if there's any other questions, because I want to get on to today, because today was a big day too, as far as the evidence recovered. Let me see. We
had 11 witnesses today compared to 2 before that. So we were flying through them.
Okay. A lot of these things I think we're going to cover in this coming section here. So today had to do with, they were from one trash facility able to recover 10 bags worth of items. Okay. Let's go through some of those things, because these are also interesting as far as what the defense theory is on this case. Bag number 1 contained, and this is the list that they were provided in court: a pair of green boots, bracelet, black purse, headphones in a case, socks, Volkswagen keys, and a black jacket. And I wish I was clever enough to have identified this. I think it was actually one of our listeners who pointed this out. but because we have the smartest community on YouTube, by the way, said, who the heck goes to bed wearing their boots, purse, bracelet, headphones, and their black jacket? Really good point, right?
Yep. And car keys in the pocket as well.
You've got car keys in their pocket.
You've got to get everything. Yeah. And these are the items that Brian said this is what she was last seen wearing. This matches his description of her leaving the house wearing these. So
okay. I just thought of it, and they're not going to use it because they've not demonstrated that they'll use clever arguments. But if you're the defense, you say, well, of course I had to get rid of the things she was wearing. I said she disappeared. I already told you I lied to you about her disappearing. Well, I wasn't going to leave behind the clothes she was wearing that evening. I had to get rid of those too.
Okay. That works. And what helps is that we haven't had any indication that there was blood on the clothing.
Also interesting. Also very interesting, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll hear that from them in the coming days. But
there wasn't lack of evidence of blood, because let's go ahead and show some more of these pictures, Caitlin. There was bags found with this is described as white towels with a red-brown stains, gauze, tissues, all with red-brown stains, bathrobe found with the red-brown stains. I mean, they keep on going on and on about these red-brown stains. We're not at the point yet where they've identified what those are. We're just at the point of recovery. This is kind of the way that trials has to play out. They can't tell you what it is before somebody can actually testify to that. Watches, gray slippers, loose hair, no body parts in any of this though, correct? No parts of anything. I don't want to get too graphic, but
there was a bit of testimony where we heard that there was some apparent tissue found.
Yes.
But that's the closest. It wouldn't be like an identifiable limb or appendage or something.
Yeah.
But I don't know. That wasn't pointed out. It looked more like a blood stain to me when I saw that evidence. I did notice the investigator on the stand wasn't able to recognize it, but some of the items that were torn up and found in the bags are the packaging that some of the equipment he bought at Home Depot or Lowe's comes in. So some of the tarps and plastics and 12x9 plastic sheeting, things like that are there in that shot as well.
Pieces of this rug. Tell us about the rug and why that was kind of important. I remember this being significant early on in reports.
The rug is important because the rug was on the floor. The house came mostly pre-furnished, right? So the rug came with the house. It belonged to the landlord. And there's a picture with Anna and playing with her child on the rug. We saw that picture today, but they cropped the child out. So just like looked like she was doing yoga. But there's a picture of her on the rug. We know that was there at the time. The landlord brought that evidence through. But we have also the testimony of a police officer who sort of walked around the house and saw a garbage bag, and he sort of kicks at it, and he could tell it was like a piece of carpet rug type thing. It was probably this evidence before it got thrown away that was there. He hadn't made all the trips yet. That's what I'm thinking they're going to tell us happened. So they literally the police got there early, which explains why he didn't call the police and report her missing earlier. He hadn't finished his work. His part that he had to get done to make sure he didn't get caught was not done yet. So he couldn't introduce the police to them. But at the same time, he had to sort of, look concerned because she was in fact gone.
Yeah. God. All right. That brings us to bag number 8. And this is the one that really starts to take on a very sinister tone to me. Bag 8 contained hammer, wire snips, hatchet, and a hacksaw, also with red-brown stains. It's essentially his toolkit in all of this. And you take a look at that. All of those are fairly innocuous items that we've probably seen around our own households. But all of them together, along with the other items,
Yeah, Yeah.
How did this come out in court? Was there any gasps heard from the audience?
I didn't hear gasps just because the way the mics are situated. We can't really hear a lot other than the witness and the attorney. But I can tell you, in our audience watching it, it changed the tone completely. It's like, oh, it hit differently just because we're now looking at the assembly of tools that he put together, and you can imagine what each one was for. When he's Googled, how can they identify a body with broken teeth? Well, we know what tools are used for that, and how to dismember a body, hacksaw, and the shears, and it's terrible to think that he was able to do this and carry it out. I just can't get in that mind space that you could do this to somebody else.
I say this to, for some reason, I always want to make this point. And it's a little bit of a graphic point, but I think it's very important because I've dealt with cases where people have been chopped up and dismembered. And it's something that I always wanted to drive home to jurors is that this is not like you may think from the movies where somebody gets themselves a real sharp knife and they kind of go about carving up somebody as if it were a turkey or something easy. This is labor intensive work, and it is physically hard, and it takes a lot of time, and it's very messy. And even with the proper surgical tools, it's not easy to do. So we're not talking a matter of moments it took him to do this. We're talking perhaps hours that it took him to do this, and hours of physically intensive labor to do this.
Yeah. I looked at talking about this dismembering. We know that she was, parts were thrown away in bags. I think the rug, this is my personal take, that the rug was basically him moving bags to get them moved outside, and they leaked. You look at the stain patterns on the rug, and the patterns are multiple circular blotches that you can see that it doesn't look like a one pool of blood that's spread.
Really good point. Really good point.
So
like a trail rather than where he may have done this procedure.
Where he set down a bag that had a bunch of parts in it, and it leaked out there. So
to my point, North Carolina nurse, and several people have asked similar questions, says, did they find any of her body parts? And then Busy, the gamer mom, says, how did they find random things of hers in the garbage, but not find any of her body parts? Did I miss something? I imagine this is something that's going to be addressed by the prosecution and likely highlighted by the defense for whatever purpose they're going to get out of that, even though they're going to admit he disposed of her body. But it is kind of remarkable, right? Even in the chaos of all of this, there is a certain amount of, I want to choose my words carefully here, but not cleanliness, but like it is as order to this, right? Yeah. It is remarkable the lack of kind of what you would expect to be human tissue found in these garbage bags.
Yeah. I may be wrong on this. I think the bags they found were near his mom's house, in a dumpster near there. So it's possible that they just didn't know where to start searching. And so they started with places where they knew he had gone. And that's why they were able to locate it. If you look at the picture of the dumpster where they found these 10 bags, it was piled high and overflowing. So they literally caught it right before it got picked up. And as trash is there, incinerated. It's hauled off and burned. And once it's burned, there's nothing left to test. There's nothing. You can't go back and sift through the ashes and say, can I identify this or that? It's an effective disposal method because of how quickly they get rid of the trash after it's been picked up.
There's been one question that people have asked, and I didn't know where to kind of fit it in here. So I'll just kind of show you some that are all similar. Southern CJB says, Josh, do you think mom knew? Where is some of the other ones here? I want to get to as many people's questions as I can. Da, 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 da. Pammy MC says, do you gentlemen think that Mama Walsh is complicit, knew something, kept the kiddos busy during the dismemberment, aided in disposal, anything? And then Mariner Mom 11 says, where were the kids when he was doing all of this? This is a excellent point, and not just gossipy here, but he's doing all of this with 3 kids who are going to say, where's mom? Now, I imagine mom leaves to go to DC quite a bit. She travels for work. He could easily say, mommy's gone. But these are 3 kids who haven't been in contact with their mother for several days now. No phone call, no check-in. Are you telling me this mom, can we show that picture of her again, Kaylin, with the three kids there? She's loving, attentive, very involved by all accounts with their lives. I'll tell you, the first thing that happens when I land somewhere that's not at home is I get on the phone with Tiffany and with the kiddos to check in with them. The idea that I wouldn't check in with my kids and the kids would be aware of that after several days is remarkable. So to that point, you got any thoughts on mom? How much she knew about all of this? I'm not asking you to commit any kind of slander or libel here, but
I have no information that would indicate that she was involved. We know that she paid the rent, which would indicate there were some financial troubles, that she was covering the $5,000 rent for their house. But the part this takes me back to when you're talking about the kids, goes back to day one and the interviews. That the first couple interviews happened in Brian's house. So the police show up in his house, the interview's going on, the kids are present, they're playing. If you go back and listen, there's a point where one of the children comes running up to show them a picture he drew. And the picture on one part, he says, has a heart. And the other part, Brian explains, is like something scary, a monster or something. And the cop's like, oh, what did he draw? And he's like, oh, it's nothing. I'm like, show me that picture. What did the kid see? What did he share that he ran to the police officer to show? I'm curious, and I know it's at the same time tragic and heartbreaking if that child has some memories of anything that happened that was tragic there. But just listening to the police officer hear these stories that were clearly false and have the kid run up with a picture, it's almost like, Lassie, what is it? What's the problem? We've got a child who can't really verbalize if they do know something. That it just made me ask the question. I wonder if they knew.
Yeah. All right. Last couple of questions I'm going to take here, and then I want to kind of get your final thoughts on what to expect for the week ahead. Is this? It looks like this kind of came from something we were talking about earlier, but Law Tube Junkie says, can premeditation take place minutes or just before a crime is committed? And then along those same lines, Sharon the Mex says, Josh, do you think that the Commonwealth can prove premeditation for first degree, or do you think they are going to convict for second degree or manslaughter? And I want to hear your thoughts, Scott, but I mean, that is obviously one of the most difficult things they're dealing with in this case. It's a no body case, so no cause, no manner of death, that they're able to determine from any kind of a medical examiner or autopsy. Very little as far as the Google searches that we've already pointed out about him kind of premeditating her murder. In fact, I would think, if anything, it argues towards the idea that he was contemplating divorcing her, not killing her. So it does look like it might be something with very little planning having gone into the murder ahead of time, whereas there's a lot of planning and work done afterwards.
I was going to ask you about this because I seem to remember cases, and I can't remember a name off the top of my head, where the prosecution used actions immediately after the murder to show that there was premeditation. So the evidence came after the fact, which is more difficult to piece together. Is that?
Well, it's certainly consciousness of guilt, right? I mean, all of this, the reason why it's all coming in, the disposal and the lying and everything else, even though he's admitted to it, is because it shows this is not the behavior of an innocent person. This is not the behavior of a person whose wife died in the way that he describes. This is the behavior of a person who died in a guilty way, that died likely at his own hands, right? Now, but to the questions here is, that could be a first degree, that could be a second degree, that could be a manslaughter. And what evidence does the prosecution have, and it comes down to their motive evidence. So maybe that's the last thing we should talk about, is that they kind of gave a menu of options to the jurors to pick from as far as motive. They've talked about the divorce, or the money, obviously, always a big one, the life insurance, and his reasons that he needed money. They've talked about the affair. And then there's this other one that I find is so sinister, but this idea that he thought that he could use the advantage of being the sole caretaker for those kids to avoid prison time on the federal case that he had. What do you think? I mean, they haven't really explored those in the evidence so far, but what do you think about those?
That third one is just chilling. I mean, using the kids as a pawn, but the harm it does to the kids on every front, if that's the case, is just terrible. I do think, like you said, the premeditation is going to be the hardest thing for the state to prove in here. And I would not be surprised if they don't get a conviction on murder one because of that. But I think there's plenty of motive. It's not something they have to prove. In Massachusetts, they don't have to prove motive, but that could prove the premeditation. I gut feel, I think this was a spur of the moment thing.
Yeah.
I think this was
like
anger, almost like a heat of passion, possibly. I mean, they've got a few Google searches that might go against that, with showing he has some knowledge about the affair previous to this. But it seems like he didn't have a plan, and that's why he had to work so hard to
all
put
of these Google searches after. If there was one Google search for how to dispose of a body before January,
shut the book. We've done it. Yep.
But it does seem like that. The only other thing, as we're sitting here talking about it, I would argue, as far as premeditation, is he did wait for a window of opportunity when no one would notice she was gone for several days, right? She's last seen New Year's Day, and she's not expected to be anywhere until the 4th. And on the 4th, her job says, where is she? But he had several days where he knew no one would be looking for her or missing her. And that's a great amount of time to clean up, dispose of her body. But it does seem like all work that he put into that only took place after January 1st.
Yeah.
Interesting. All right, my friend, you're fantastic. This has been such an enlightening conversation. I hope you'll let us do this, bug you again as this trial goes on, because I really appreciate hearing all your insights from watching it every single day in court. Tell everybody watching, if you're not already a subscriber, please go subscribe at Recovery Addict. There's the link. We're going to provide it for all of you, but tell us all about your channel a little bit for folks who might not be familiar.
Sure. We're a true crime channel. We are sorry, let me start over. We're a true crime channel where I'm not a lawyer. I'm a true crime fan. I've loved the law since I was a little kid. And I love tech and I love the law, and I put the two together, and I make the court watching experience the best it can possibly be, the way I would like to watch court. And you're welcome to come and join us. It's a friendly community where you'll feel right at home from day one, and get to talk about murder.
Can you show us a little view of your setup there, just because I love seeing it? Look at that. Look at that. That is the control station of the SS Recovery Addict Enterprise right there. Yeah.
We've got it all right here, but it's that's how the magic happens. That's behind the scenes. But we have an amazing, wonderful community, very supportive of each other. We do support people in addiction recovery, regardless of what that addiction is. So you'll hear that theme mentioned quite a bit. But mostly we're just fans of true crime and friends, and love hanging out together.
I'm sure everybody here is already familiar, but if you're not, please take a moment to go subscribe to Scott's channel now. You're not going to regret it. And he is one of the best places to watch these trials. Don't go anywhere, everybody. I'm going to say goodbye to Scott, but we have some announcements for you. Thank you so much, my friend.
Thank you very much. We'll see you, Josh.
All right. Take care. All right. Like I said, sit tight. Don't go anywhere. Don't press any buttons. Keep your seatbelts on. But before we get into anything, I just have this one quick word from our sponsor. In the true crime stories that we cover on this channel, we see every day how people get stuck in negative patterns that shape their entire lives. And if I'm being honest, I've had my own struggles with negative patterns. The kind where you tell yourself, I can handle this, even though you've been stuck in the same cycle for years. What I've learned is this. Breaking those patterns alone can be impossible. We all think grit and willpower will get us out of it, and sometimes the thing we avoid, asking for help, is exactly what makes change possible. Having someone outside your bubble who can actually challenge those patterns, that's what made the difference for me. So I'm glad to share BetterHelp as today's sponsor. They make starting therapy easier. You just fill out a short questionnaire and they'll match you with a licensed therapist who's trained to listen and give you helpful, unbiased advice. And if it's not the right fit, you can switch anytime at no extra cost. BetterHelp accepts both HSA and FSA cards, making it even easier to prioritize your mental health. In 2024 alone, over 137,000 people use their HSA or FSA benefits for therapy through BetterHelp. So be sure to use yours before they expire. Click the link in the description or go to betterhelp.com/courtroomconfidential and get 10% off your first month of therapy. Really proud to be associated with that sponsor because of the good work that we're doing. And these are, cases that we talk about where it can cause reason for you might want to speak to someone. So please check it out. All right. The other thing I want you to check out is our website. Have you been to thecourtroomconfidential.com? You can go there for 3 very important reasons. And those are messages, membership, and merch. First of all, every Sunday, we have something on Courtroom Confidential called Sunday Funday, where we answer your questions live that you've given to us throughout the week. Well, how do we get those questions? Well, you leave us a message at thecourtroomconfidential.com and click on leave us a message, and we will answer that live this coming Sunday. Also, membership. Thank you so much, everybody who gave a gift of memberships this evening. Always appreciate those. Always appreciate your generosity in helping this channel continue to grow. And if you are curious about joining our membership program, we put a lot of work into it. We try to make it worth your time and energy and support. And you can find out about joining at courtroomconfidential.com by clicking on Become a Member. And finally, the holidays are coming up. It's time for holiday merch, and we've got you covered. First of all, we've got all the stocking stuffers you could possibly want. We've got cooler, what do we tumblers like this, which say let's get juiced and got our logo on it. We've got all sorts of mugs. I've got 2 of them here. Why do I have all these? I'm not drinking out of all of these, by the way. They're just sitting here on my desk. All of these cool tumblers and mugs that we have available for you. We've got brand new shirt colors for the fall winter season for you available, plus some special holiday themed items. There you go. I love that one. I can't see it. I want the one in the middle there that says I run on true crime and Christmas cheer. I feel like that's most fitting for my personality. So these are some of the stuff that we have available. A lot more available for you. Easily distracted by trials, coffee because murder is wrong, which is true. That is something we stand by here. We stand by that theme. And PJs. We get screamed at for not having enough PJs. Well, we've got PJs this year. And these sweatshirts that I don't talk about enough. This is one of my favorites. This is what is this? Heather Blue or something, one of our zip ups that we have available for you guys. A lot of very cool stuff for the holidays coming up. Great for gifts, great for yourself. So check it out. What did you miss? Well, on Monday, we had our true crime docket. We talked about Brian Walshe. We talked about, what else did we talk about? We talked about, Luigi Mangione was in court this week. A lot of updates this week. We went through everything to expect for the week on our true crime docket, which is already up on the channel. Also, stay tuned because we're covering the Brian Walshe channel, Brian Walshe trial on our sister channel, Courtroom Confidential Live Trials. Please check that out. Go and subscribe there if you haven't already. We'll be covering that starting tomorrow, day 4 of the trial, and everything in between, gavel to gavel. And I'm poking my head in where I can, but it's a great place to continue to join your Courtroom Confidential community in the chat. Friday, a couple of things coming up for you. First of all, at noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern on Fox Nation is going to be the second episode of the brand new weekly show that I'm very proud to be a part of, called the Weekly Rap Sheet. It's with my co-hosts Paul Morrow and Donna Rotuno, and that will come out on Fox Nation. It's a subscription streaming. And this week, we are also would love to get more of your questions. We had a big showing last week from the Courtroom Confidential community, and I want to shock them again with all of the support that we have from you folks. So this week, send an email to theweeklyrapsheet@fox.com with any questions about, we are talking about Brian Walshe, obviously, Corey Richins this week, and Anna Kempner. So if you have questions about those cases, or questions about or a question on each of those cases, send us your questions to theweeklyrapsheet@fox.com. Then right after you're done watching that, come back to our channel at 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern for the weekly roundup, where we're going to be talking about a lot of the same stuff. Luigi Mangione, David, Brian Walshe, Anna Kempner, lots of updates for this week. And then you round out your weekend with Sunday Fun Day back here at 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern for another Sunday Fun Day, where I will be taking your questions that you leave us at thecourtroomconfidential.com. Give us a lot of work here, Ritter. You're giving us a lot of things to do. You want emails, you want voice messages. Yeah. It is. This is a partnership. We're all in this together. So we would love your questions so that we can answer them live on Sunday. All right. That's everything I got for you. That's a lot. I'm out of breath. I want to give a very special shout out and thank you to Scott from Recovery Addict for coming on this evening. He was fantastic. I'll always love having a conversation with him. Jennifer, You Really Need To, has been a member for 2 months. Woohoo. So happy to catch a live chat. So happy that you were here as well. Just Stephanie W. has been a member for 7 months. It's been a pleasure to be here. That's very kind of you. And Kathy Mama Bear has been a member for 10 months. Woohoo, milestone here, and one on RA the same day. How lucky can one girl be? My 2 favorite channels ever. Oh, I love hearing that. Thank you, Kathy Mama Bear. Very, very special shout out to Afton, Shy Gal, Kathy, and therapists you know for being our mods. You're the best on YouTube. Kaylin, thank you for making everything run so smoothly. And Tiffany, thank you for being the best thing to ever happen to me. Have a wonderful rest of your evening, and we will see you all back here on Friday, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.